What can take it to a 30-minute conversation is the follow-up questions.
If I was interviewing the client or someone in my team, maybe they kind of feel obliged to say all the right things versus a kind of an external person doing the work.
During the interview process, it also became a good research tool to understand the customer and the persona better.
Hi, Snippet here, and in this video you will meet my guest Anfernee Chansamooth, a content strategist and director of Simple Creative Marketing who specializes in writing case studies. Now, I asked him his secret sauce on how to write the best case studies, and he literally shared with me all the questions you can use to ask your clients, how to get them to agree to do a case study with you, and more. Now, getting great case studies for your business is one of the best ways to drive sales for your business. Anfernee has worked with leading Australian brands such as Bean Ninjas and Hub Australia and has been featured in Forbes, Inc. and Huffington Post.
Hey Anfernee, good to have you here today.
Good to be here, Lynn. How are you?
I am good. It could be better if I'm not locked down from in Sydney like you. Miss my family, but apart from that, luckily we all work online. I've been working online for 10 years, so it's okay. But yeah, I wanted to get you on today because look, at the end of the day, I think case studies and testimonials are one of the best ways to grow your business, because as customers get to see other customers' experience and really see what you can deliver, that is how people would actually be interested in your service. So I think it's one of the best marketing strategy. And you're the man behind that who does case studies for people. So let's talk about, why did you decide to get into doing this service in particular?
Yeah, so I actually started off by writing content. So I do write copy. So I'm a copywriter by trade. The first time I started to do case studies specifically was when I actually worked as a marketing manager for a co-working space here in Sydney. And one of the things they asked me to do was to contact our members and actually do their stories, right? So one of the best ways that we found to actually promote the co-working space was to actually interview our members and share their stories through the blog. And then later on it became a podcast. But that was really great for conversion, and it was also great for attracting people or businesses like the ones that we wanted to focus on, right? And who fit the sort of ideal persona, if you will. And so I kind of had that in mind when I started my business 5 years ago. And one of the first few pieces of content that I produced was actually a series of case studies where I had to go and interview my client's client, turn that into an article, and that put that onto their website, and then they went and promoted that, through their list and whatever else that they did with it. It was really interesting because what I observed was not only were we able to share success stories, like this is why you should work with us because here are some results we were able to produce for our clients, but during the interview process, it also became a good research tool to understand the customer and the persona better, because we could then also ask certain questions like, well, what made you decide to hire this particular business, right? Or use this particular product or service, right? What considerations did you have at that time? Were there any challenges that you had before you worked with this particular business? And so it became a great research tool that my client would then use that information to tweak their own marketing, but also to improve their sales process, right? So that became really powerful. So it's such a deeply embedded process that, we think of it as a marketing device, but it's actually for the entire customer journey. You can use these case studies in multiple touch points. You can use it at the beginning when you're trying to attract someone new. You can use it during the conversion point when you're sending out a proposal and you're ready to make the deal. You can use it afterwards when you're onboarding, whether it's a new client or even a new team member, to educate them about the type of work that you actually do and the results you've been able to produce. And then all the way down to the end where you're now looking at producing advocates. The best way to produce an advocate is to profile them, right? To get their story out. And they now literally have a piece of content that they can put out to their audiences to say, hey, I've been working with Lynn, I've been working with whoever it may be, and this is what we were able to achieve, right? So that's just so you can see, case studies touch multiple touch points throughout the business.
And so people will engage with you to do the case study because it can be quite time consuming, right? Because you're going to actually have to organize and the meeting with the clients. And how long does these case study session actually go for?
Yeah, so the way that we do our process presently, it takes got the scheduling that you mentioned. So getting out there getting the approval from the client, the buy-in for them to do it. So that can take, on average, anything from a day to a week, or if they go on leave, then you got to wait another couple of weeks. Then you got all that follow-up emails and stuff going on. The actual interview itself, we do 20 minutes to 30 minutes for the interview. And then that goes into two places. One goes to video editing. So the editor will take typically up to a week to edit. And for them, it's maybe a few hours, but it's just depending on their availability. And then there's also the article production, which can, again, our writer, we usually give a 7 to 10 day turnaround on the article for the first draft. And then there's a review process. So then the client reviews both the video and the article. And then that can take another week, depending on how busy they are. And then to get to the end point where you're like, here's the thing that's going to go and published. So from beginning to end, usually about 2 to 4 weeks per client. It just depends on all these different factors.
Yeah. And how do you actually pick and choose these clients? Do you suggest to just invite every client that comes through the door and say, hey, can you do a testimonial, or what's the process in being able to pick these people?
Absolutely not. So there is I actually recently released a training around this, a quick 5-minute how to select the right clients for your case studies training, which is available on my site. And now you don't want to select any client. You actually want to think about who are you trying to attract to your business, right? So you kind of reverse engineer, and most of the businesses that we deal with would typically have their buyer persona set up. They would understand, I'm trying to reach this particular buyer. So once you have that in mind, then you start to think about, okay, well, which clients have already fit that profile that we can do interviews and case studies on. Yeah. So you start there. And then if you don't have that yet, and let's say someone's watching this and they're a startup and they don't have that, I would think about, well, who is your ideal client anyway? Who are you trying to reach? And how can you reach out to 3 or 4 or 10 of those that fit that criteria and offer to do some work for them for free or at a reduced rate? So then you can produce these case studies, right? So that's the best way to go about it strategically.
Yeah. And let's just say if you do have a business and you've got customers there that you want to approach, do you have to offer them anything to spend some time to actually contribute to your business? Yeah, do you find, is there some hacks in getting people to say yes?
It's rarely happened where we've had to incentivize someone to jump on a call with us for one of our clients. Usually what we found is the best time, tying this to the question you just asked me, the best thing to do is when you've actually produced a great outcome for a client, that's the best time to go to them and say, hey, this was an amazing effort that, or job we've done together. Would you be interested in being profiled for our website, our podcast, whatever it is, and being a case study, right? And so because they're already in that, yes, I just loved the experience and it was really awesome, would love to share that story, then typically we get a yes at that moment, okay? It's also, incidentally, for those who are trying to work, Google My Business and those sort of things, that's the best time to ask for a Google review, right? When you just delivered some great work, okay? Now, for those where maybe you do need to give the client a little bit of a push, a couple of ideas that we've tested and some clients have tested, not me, but that they have tested, is offering some additional consulting time, like a free coaching call, just to check in where they're at and then help them solve the next problem they might have. Or I've seen some other people offer gift vouchers, Amazon gift cards, these sort of things. I'm not a big fan of that. I think if the strength of your product or service isn't strong enough that someone's going to give you that review anyway, I think you need to really work on your product and service, to be honest. But there are a couple of ideas for you.
Yeah. And do you find that, because I remember speaking to you a while ago and you kind of said that because you're a third party person, the clients kind of feel less awkward because let's just say if I was interviewing the client or someone in my team, maybe they kind of feel obliged to say all the right things versus kind of an external person doing the work. Any difference?
Yeah, absolutely. And I like to use this example of, if you think of the census and you have these researchers that come and knock on your door and they represent the government, but they're not actually government officials, right? Why is it we say yes to them, but we say no to if the politician was knocking at our door asking us questions, right? So it's the same thing, that psychology. Two things. One is the business owner is usually not the best person to do the interview just because they should be doing other things and they don't have the time to do it. And then secondly, having a third party outside of the company, it just has that extra credibility, right? Like when in the client's mind, because they're like, oh, they're a marketing agency or they're a research company or whatever it may be. And we kind of frame it as we just want to share the story and we're open to all honesty, what you provide, right? So there was a situation where I worked with one particular client where we did the case study, and throughout my interview with their client, it came to light that they weren't so happy about the entire process. There were certain things they really loved, but there were certain things that they didn't really like at all. I gave all of that data back to my client and said, look, okay, I'm going to leave it to you and what you want to use, right? And it really depends on your message. Because they were dealing with a government body, they had real strong reservations about putting the whole thing up in public, and because they wanted to protect certain team members and whatnot. And so I said, okay, that's your call. Just share what you want to share, but at least now you have data that you can use to improve your process.
And so, as you said, that the session usually goes for 20 to 30 minutes. And I mean, I know if you wrote an article, it's kind of like a summary, but in terms of video, how long would you recommend a testimonial case study video to be?
Yeah, we want to try to stick between that 3 minutes to 7 minutes, I'd say max for the video. And then a key tip around videos is you want to also, as someone's watching the video, you want to make sure you have text that highlights key points. You've got a service that does that, so I recommend you contact Lynn and ask about that service. But certainly you want to not just put video face on the screen, you actually want to have, okay, well, what are the key points, for the skimmer, for them to grab from that video. And that's usually what the key result was, what the recommendation is, those sort of things.
Yeah. So in terms of the questions for the case study, I know if you're talking for 20, 30 minutes, there's probably a lot of questions in there. Do you want to just highlight some of the key categories of questions that we should take people through to get the great outcome?
Yeah, you'd be surprised to know there's only about 7 questions total, and usually I get to about 5. It's what can take it to a 30-minute conversation is the follow-up questions, right? So I'll ask a question. One question would be, why did you start working with this company? And what were you looking for at the time that you were considering working with this particular service or using this product? And so now I've already started to elicit the motivations of the buyer to understand what were they thinking at that time, right? I will also ask, what specific challenges did you have, before you started working with XYZ company? And so then they would give me, these are a few of the challenges. And then I might probe a bit further as the interviewer. So I might say, okay, well, tell me more about that particular challenge, because I'm listening with curiosity and I'm looking for, where is the gold? Like with any interview, right? And I know you've been podcasting for a while, with any interview, where is the gold, right? And so I'm trying to find that. Now, I will state here that I also, before I get into the interview with the client, I've already asked my client, what angle or what specific message do you want to come from this case study, right? So they've already prepared me by saying, okay, I want you to ask about this particular project. Right. And so then that's in the interview, I would ask, okay, well, can you tell me more about this project? Can you tell me more about how that worked for you? What did you particularly like about the process or the experience you had with the company, right? Or their team? And then the last question we kind of wrap up with is, if you were to recommend ABC company to a friend, if you were sitting at a party or at the pub with a mate and you wanted to share that you had a great win with this particular company, what would you say to them? Right? And it's very important the way I frame that. And I learned this from a guy called, one of my mentors, Dan Norris, by stating that, if you were sitting at a pub and chatting with a mate, you kind of put them into that mind frame of, well, it's a very casual conversation and the language that I'm going to use is very casual. So I'm not speaking like a very highly jargoned, technical, that's not how you speak to your friends normally, right? And so what you get then is the testimonial in very common language that most people can understand. So there are a few questions that we typically ask.
Yeah, love it. Well, it obviously looks like, you've got the experience and the time to do this for companies. How do people connect with you if they're interested to learn more about your service?
Yeah, so I've actually put together a framework which goes through the 7 steps that we take our clients through. Well, it's actually, if you wanted to create your own case studies, you just follow the framework. I put that into a PDF guide that's on simplecreativemarketing.com/Lynn. You can get the PDF guide. There's also a link to a training that you can check out on my website as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today, Anfernee.
Thanks, Lynn. You rock.
Well, thank you so much for watching, guys. If you'd like to learn more ways to start or grow your business, don't forget to subscribe as I continue to bring on experts from all different areas of business to help you on your journey. Now, here's another one for you in the meantime.